Thank you. Question from Jacob Batt.
All right. This was from Mayor. In your time as mayor, Hattiesburg has seen or has received several awards on growth and small business growth. As governor, how would you keep Mississippi growing as far as job creation?
But you know, the ingredient is the same. You know, I wish that I could stand here and say that we've solved every problem in Hattiesburg. I'd be lying to you if I said that. We actually started pushing the ball down the hill. That's kind of my saying. Is that we push the ball down the hill to solve our problems and not just giving lip service to them. We acknowledge, first of all, that there's a problem. And then we put people around the table to determine how we're going to solve those problems. I think we did that. We just received an award last week from Blue Cross Blue Shield as the healthiest city above 10,000 in the state of Mississippi. Why? Because a few years ago, we determined that we wanted to be smoke-free. We put people around the table who were for and against, and we didn't stop until everybody was a consensus to determine that that was best for us. And then when we determined it, we went ahead, and we're totally smoke-free. People are happy about that. What do? We heard people. The last census, because we've grown in Hattiesburg since the last census. The last census said that a demographic between 24 and 29-year-old has grown 27% in Hattiesburg. They now make up 11% of our population. Why? Because we put them at the table. We put you, under 40, at the table and said, what is it that you want? 20 years from now, this is your world. This is not our world. This is not Mr. Luckett's world. This is your world. This is not mine. We want to make sure that we're doing what you want us to do. That's what we're going to do in the state of Mississippi, put people around the table. I can't say it any better. I have a history of doing that. We have a history of doing that. I say we a lot, because I believe that that's how you solve problems. We have to do that. Those who we like and those who we don't like. That's how we solve problems. That's what we've done in Hattiesburg. We've put aside our differences and decided we're going to do what the people elected us to do.
Thank you. Mr. Luckett.
I don't really have a comment. I think the question was directed strictly toward Mayor DuPree in Hattiesburg. Is there a follow-up about Clarksdale? I'll be happy to answer it.
Yeah. Well,
The whole world's coming to Clarksdale, Mississippi right now.
Clarksdale. Tell us about Clarksdale in a minute.
We have seen incredible growth in terms of our business creation there. From a street that 10 years ago had no operating businesses in terms of restaurants and art galleries, we have 7 restaurants and 4 art galleries now open. From a place that after 5 o'clock you could have fired a rifle down both sides of the parking lane on Delta Avenue and not hit a car or a person. Don't try it now. It's hard to get a parking spot and there are lots of people out there. So we've seen a tremendous upsurge. CNN came and did a special on us and calling us the white light in a bright recession. I mean, in a dark reception, a bright light in a dark sea of recession. Clarksdale, Mississippi, aired all the way around the world on CNN. We were able to do things when others couldn't, increasing our sales tax revenues double digits. And it just takes vision and hard work, and we have done it. Gosh, we had 4 groups from London, England in just on a Wednesday night the other night. We're talking Clarksdale now, not Oxford. Talking Clarksdale.
Thank you.
Thank
Question from John Scott.
Mr. Luckett, let's stay on this topic of job growth, if we could, for a minute here. From getting out of Clarksdale statewide, what would your approach be to economic development?
Well, it's the same formula. It works. It worked in Clarksdale. Somebody with some ability, some vision, some leadership skills, some can-do, some know-how. You know, we had naysayers. Open a blues club in Clarksdale? Who's going to come to that? Well, the answer is pretty clear now. The whole world's coming. You just expand the formula out. There are lots of towns that have been forgotten and neglected in Mississippi. We've got pockets, yes. There's South Haven, there's Oxford, there's Tupelo, there's Meridian, there's Hattiesburg, there's places on the coast. But those are 6 cities in a big state. We take it to the visionary level. We suggest things. Let's become the world's destination for music. We become the blues world destination in Clarksdale. Let's expand this view. That's what it takes, and that's what I can do. I have that kind of vision and leadership ability to take it to that next level. My friends pointed that out to me when they suggested back in the fall of 2008 that I take on this run for governor. Do for the state what you've done for your hometown. And I gave it thought, and I know I can get it done. I have that kind of skill set, wherever it came from. Maybe it was my parents, maybe it's just a good work ethic when I was painting houses, putting my way through college and working for other painters and going out working for myself on nights and weekends. I've never shied away from hard work. I had on a tool belt last night hanging a door at my hunting camp. I know how to do things, and I'll get it done.
Thank you. Mayor DuPree?
Would you repeat that for me so I make sure I get it right?
Just on a state level, what would your policy or economic development policy be? If you could describe that for us.
Well, it'd be the same as Hattiesburg. You know, I think we have the distinction of putting, again, people around the table. We have our area development partnership, which actually take our Chamber of Commerce and took our economic development people and put them under one roof so that we all could talk the same thing and understand that small business is really the backbone of whatever we get. You know, 90-some% of all the businesses in Mississippi are small businesses, and over 60% of the people who work in small businesses. And what I was about to say when we're talking about schools is when I was in school, they actually had vocational training. And the people who I was talking about that actually work and graduated with me actually have their own business. We got to get back to the entrepreneurial spirit, and we have to develop it at home, we have to develop it in the States. You know, you look at the Delta. I mean, I think that the Delta is a prime location for job growth and industry growth. It used to be that the Delta would do their growing, and then they package it, and they process it and package it and then sell it back to it. Now they grow it, send it off somewhere, they process it, they package it and send it back to us. We've got to look inward. You know, our budget is $20 billion budget. Half of that budget comes from the federal government. We got to stop that. We got to figure out how we can grow our own income inside the state of Mississippi. We've got to be able to do that. And small business development is the way to do that. And you put people around the table. I want to get, you know, we started 1,000 jobs. We helped to start 1,000 jobs last year, another 1,000 jobs. I would love to be able to get a bunch of big companies into the state of Mississippi. But the reality is small business people stay. They don't leave. They suck it up, and they become part of your community.
Thank you. Question from Bobby Harrison.
Mayor DuPree, going back to health care, you made reference to Medicaid face-to-face a few minutes ago. As Mississippi is one of maybe the only state, if not the only state, one of the few states to require face-to-face recertification of Medicaid recipients. Governor Barber says that saves money and holds down and eliminates fraud. Other people would argue that it's an undue burden on people and also actually adds costs by the people they have to hire to do those face-to-face visits. What would be your position on that as governor?
I really had to take a real hard look at it, Bobby, because the reality is it didn't save any money. It actually costs more money, administrative money, to actually do the face-to-face. The other thing is they actually changed the way they actually looked at it. Before, the formula was that when someone went off of Medicaid and they came back on, then it would count it twice. Well, under the new formula now, they count one time, and so they're not even counted, and that's one reduction. The other reduction is that those people at a nursing home or whatever they don't have to do the face-to-face, so they automatically reduce too. So the numbers are not, you know, you can make numbers do almost anything that you want them to do. We take a real hard look at that and see exactly what we want to do. I want to do it. No, I'm not going to have any unburden, any more burdens on those people than necessary. Because the thing is, I got to tell people is that, you know, I look at things as half full, not half empty. You know, I'm not naive. I know that there's some people that are on Medicaid that are probably taking the system. I believe that. But the vast majority of people are people who need it. The vast majority of people are people just like people that are sitting here, you know, just like I was when I grew up. We were on commodities, which is the forerunner of food stamps, so y'all don't know what commodities were. Powdered everything, eggs, milk, cheese. You ever had powdered cheese, you had something. So that was the forerunner. And everybody that I knew then needed it. And most of the people I know now need it. But we would have to take a real hard look at that and not put more burden on them that they necessarily have to endure.
Thank you. Mr. Luckett.
Yes, people more knowledgeable than I about this whole situation of Medicaid have consulted with me, and I continue to consult with them. The net effect of this face-to-face certification and recertification program, and we are the only state in the country that does require that. We have the most onerous method of getting onto Medicaid. We have the biggest need to be putting our children on Medicaid of any state in the country. The multiplier effect economically is tremendous, and we get far more benefit back from Medicaid than we pay out for it. It is a budget situation we've got to look at. But I don't see the evidence of sufficient fraud to justify the face-to-face recertification program. What it has the net effect of doing, it's caused 65 to 70,000 children to otherwise eligible not be on Medicaid. And so medical treatment is deferred until it's emergent, and then they go to an emergency room, and that costs 4 or 5 times what that treatment prophylactically would have cost. So it's a no-brainer to me. We've got to get the certification process in line with other states.
Thank you. Question from Jacob Batt.
All right, this goes back to education a little bit. Year after year, Mississippi universities receive less and less funding from the state to the point where it's some of the lowest in the nation. As governor, would you plan to continue to decrease the funding, or you stop it?
Well, that's a real dilemma. I have followed closely my undergraduate alma mater, the University of Virginia, as its funding has been decreased by the legislature of Virginia for years and years, down to the point now it's around 10%, maybe less than that at last count. You know, four-year college and postgraduate degrees are not for everyone, but for those who qualify and have the will, we've got to find a way to make it affordable. Georgia, again, has a good working model there. We need to study other states' success and borrow from it. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. But getting back to not everybody is college material in that sense of the word, I think Mayor DuPree made a good point earlier about vocational schools. When I was that age student, we had metal shop and wood shop, they were called, vocational schools. We need more plumbers and masons and carpenters and bricklayers. That workforce development that comes from the community colleges in this state is an invaluable resource, and I want to continue to build it up, talk it up, and make those out-of-state employers who want to come in here aware of it, because we've got wonderful resources there. And like you said, I've got a lot of real estate I've developed over my life, and we pay those plumbers and carpenters good wages too. They're good jobs out there.
Mayor DuPree.
Well, you know, I guess I just go back to the budget priorities again. I think that you know, Governor Barber made a good statement when he said that we need to figure out what are the core responsibilities for government, and then fund those. The problem that we've had over the last few years is that we figured out what the core responsibilities are, and then we cut the core. And you got problems when you cut the core. I think you determine what the core responsibilities for state government is, what they are. And then you go back to your budget priorities. And instead of budgeting for 1 year, you go back to your priorities and you budget your projections for 3 years, at least a minimum of 3 years. And you keep pressing for 3 years to make sure that your projections are good. And you fund the things that you're supposed to fund, like Mississippi Adequate Education, like a 4-year institution, like junior college. You know what the reality is? We pay $14,000 a year per person for an inmate. Opposed to, bless you, $4,000 for a student in public school. The numbers don't match. We got a budget. This administration is going to be about education, not about incarceration. And my history in Hattiesburg says that we want another award because we're the only city in the state of Mississippi that instead of incarcerating people with behavioral problems, we call in a clinician. We've partnered with Pine Belt to call in a clinician so that instead of putting them in jail, we put them on meds or counseling, and they don't put them in jail. We got to find ways to stop incarcerating people and making that cost go up, and put the money where it needs to be. 4-year institutions, K-12, early childhood development. You got to go back to your budget priorities and determine what are your priorities.
Thank you.